So let us listen to Professor Ohno and Professor Uesu's presentation on private sector. Then after Professor Kondo and I would give a final remark, then we would make a broad discussion. So Professor Ohno and Professor Uesu, I wish you would start the presentation.
Thank you very much, Professor Yamagata, and thank you very much for everybody in the Korean, the friends and colleagues. Together with Sayoko, Uesu, I would like to present the chapter 7, which is new partnership with the private sector in Japanese Development Corporation. Actually, this is a paired chapter with Professor Park, so I hope this will be complementary. So let us start the motivation. There has been major changes in the landscape in the international development, particularly from the era from MDG to SDG. There has been a growing interface between business and development cooperation activities. So there has been new attention to the public-private partnership PPP in SDG era, also in Japanese Development Corporation. Particularly, there has been a special focus on the role of the business, local government, universities and research institute, and also some supportive measures to bring STI, science, technology, innovation in developing countries, which is really mentioned by Professor Park. So we want to understand better what this means for the Japanese Development Corporation, because that in Japan, that ODA, trade and investment has been linked even in the past. So what is new about it and what we have to think about for the better future? So structure of the chapter is as follows. So we have start with recent global trends and new models of development partnership with the private sector. Then the chapter talks about evolution of Japanese development partnership with the private sector. Then we will touch upon selective cases of new partnership model of development cooperation. I think Sayoko will touch upon these case studies. We have 3 case studies. One is how that the local government and also local SME, based on their expertises in the period of urbanization, have tried to share those expertises for sustainable development through PPP. Then we also want to touch upon the STI and SDG collaboration, business collaboration, in the taking an example of Africa. Then we draw implications for the Japanese the corporation and also international development in general. So let me start with recent global trend and new model of development partnership with private sector. As everybody is sure that the private sector finance accounted really a lot, great share in total financial flow to developing countries, from advanced to developing countries. So it is much more the ODA. Although maybe the recent years, because of the COVID pandemic, maybe private sector flow has been limited, but this is a general trend. So there has been a new initiative by international development community to promote partnership with the private sector within ODA. And furthermore, I think SDG marked a big departure from the MDG in a sense that it brought the business into the scene and tackling global, broader challenges comprehensively. And also SDG 9 is the innovation and the industrial development. And also SDG 12 talks about the importance of responsible consumption and production. So, and also right now we are facing the pandemic, and we shall say that the role of the private sector is becoming even more important in ensuring the pandemic recovery, the building back better, and also making economic, social, and environmental progress, including resilience strengthening. So what I see is that we have a new maybe partnership framework between the ODA and those business activities. It has already started in the time of the MDG, but it was more narrowly focused in the name of the base of the pyramid or inclusive business that has been private sector approach to providing goods and services for the livelihood to the poor people in the commercial basis. But now under the era of SDG, it has been much more broadened as called the SDG business. So much more broader business engagement for sustainable business by utilizing private sector know-how to address environmental, social concerns. And also furthermore, as a corporate activity is kind of expanded in the globally, there are increasing awareness of the importance of the value chain management in a responsible way. So CSR factors in value chain management is becoming also important. So there is a emerging alliance among donors and business and CSO international organization, like I show here. These are just an example, like Germany, US, UK, many organizations like UNDP have been proposing PPP for Sustainable Development Platform. And also ILO or IFC has established that, like a decent work program. So these are also example of responsible business platform. So this is just an example. Then how Japan is coping or responding to this kind of evolution. So let me share with you that maybe Japanese cases. As I said before, and also maybe various chapters in our book talk about that the Japanese Development Corporation has had the focus on economic development and on ODA, investment and trade. So partnership, PPP, is not new in Japanese ODA. However, more recently, I argue that both external and also domestic environment surrounding ODA business has undergone very much changes. Of course, financial crisis made awareness of importance of that maybe inclusiveness, but Great East Japan earthquake, like a tsunami in Fukushima, and also maybe Japanese specific shrinking domestic market because of the demographic situation, aging, declining birth rate. This has caused many Japanese companies, including SME, have to find out market overseas. And they chose to maybe challenge their technology use for developmental purposes. So since around 2010, Ministry of Foreign Affairs and also JICA, which has been responsible for development cooperation, have become very much active in promoting partnership with Japanese business by introducing various schemes. It's not just a METI. METI is always responsible for promoting Japanese business, but it is quite new. MOFA and JICA has been getting engaged. And also Japanese government through former Prime Minister Abenomics had a kind of big kind of that revitalizing strategy, expanded the budget for companies, SME overseas expansion. So along that SDG, and also along this kind of background, the Japanese ODA Charter has been renamed, reformulated in 2015 and called as a Development Cooperation Charter. It has a name change to Development Cooperation, which signifies partnership in development broadly. And also the development cooperation is a catalyst, not just directly supporting, of course, the poor people. I think Takayama Sensei said that from CSO perspective, maybe quality growth may not be sounding good, but I think it's an inclusive, sustainable and resilient growth has been maybe elaborated. And also for that reason, private sector role has been maybe invited to make an important role. So for this framework, various new aid modalities have been introduced over the past decade. There are two lines mainly. One is Ministry of Foreign Affairs as a JICA line, which introduced new modalities to invest, test, and verify and ideas and technology of Japanese big corporation as well as SME. So it is beyond just a contracting ODA project. That is, their technology and ideas have been invited to contribute to the SDG. So it has been around 2010, but from 2018, those various schemes has been more systematized and integrated as a SDG business supporting scheme. Another line is that the Ministry of Education and Culture, Sports and Science and Technology and JICA. So this is to promote collaboration between STI research and ODA in developing countries. And also more recently, that is also developing into strengthen link to the private sector business. This is called SATOREPS, Science and Technology Research Partnership for Sustainable Development, which started in 2008. But more recently, in 2018, their link to the SDG business scheme in JICA has started. Okay. I think that Professor Park also talked about the proliferation of the institution. So we at least have also different ministries are also getting engaged. Maybe I will skip this, but just to show that from around 2009 and 10, various scheme has been maybe started in MOFA and JICA, and then it is now consolidated like this. Okay. Also from that maybe SATREPS or Ministry of Education and Science and Technology that side, we have, as I said, that the new scheme has been started. Maybe idea is that I think that we collaborate with the research institution, let's say in African countries in R&D, and then try to collaborate with the Japanese universities and the research organizations through SATREPS scheme by research collaboration and the expert and training. And then eventually it would be great if the outcome of the result of the research can be maybe commercialized. So initial stage of this kind of pilot experimentation or social implementation can be supported through SDG business scheme. So that is the idea. Okay, so from here, let me invite Sayoko for the concrete case studies. Maybe, are you going to skip here or are you going to touch upon?
Yes.
Yeah. So
yes, I'm going to skip the case study 1 and 3.
Okay.
So would you please move to case study? Yes, here. Well, thank you very much, Professor Ohno. So in our chapter, we have selected 3 case studies to explore new partnership linking Japanese science and technology to sustainable development in developing countries. Due to time limitation, let me explain very briefly on this second case study. One of the early satellite projects between Japan and Tunisia. So while this satellite project was started in 2010, it was built on the long-term research collaboration between the Tsukuba University in Japan and the Biotechnology Center in Tunisia. And this was also assisted by the Japanese ODA for a long time. So for decades, Japanese and Tunisian researchers had been jointly explored the medicinal effect of local plants in Tunisia that had been overlooked so far. But the long-term research collaboration between our 2 institutes has revealed a huge potential for local value chain, local value creation in North Africa and to open market opportunities in bordering regions, including Sub-Saharan Africa. So now the project is on the second phase and it's run under the PPP framework linked to the SDA business and is expected to contribute to SDGs goal 3 and 15. Actually, the project has signed several memorandum of understanding with Japanese and local companies. And we are so happy to see some products coming from the North Africa. To sum up our chapter, we would like to highlight the following implications. So firstly, the SDG area requires much broader and deeper interaction with partner countries and stakeholders, and within and also outside Japan. And secondly, we would like to point out the enhanced role of new partnership models for post-pandemic recovery. We have several challenges for that, and especially taking advantage of digital and new technology to address the pandemic-related problem, but also to address the existing development challenge. And last but not least, patience and long-term perspectives are really needed to foster the development partnership with the private sector. Thank you very much.